Okay, the protagonist in this one is named Marco, and I'm sorry, Stein, but Animorphs has been out for a year by this point, and you don't get to have a Marco. That's called scholastic dibs. This Marco is not a sarcastic but ruthless young man that everyone has a bisexual headcanon for, but rather an empty vessel. A protagonist less defined by who he is and more by what happens to him. Marco is the only child of a single mother, and Mom is overly protective. Everything Marco does is a risk in Mom's eyes. Don't eat too fast or you'll get indigestion. Don't eat too slow or you'll be malnourished. Don't sit or you'll mess up your posture. Don't stand up or the blood will flow to your feet. As you can imagine, participating in sports is a no-go. But when Marco's mom is busy elsewhere, he'll slip out with his friends to play some softball. On one such day, everyone is getting set up for a game, but a girl named Gwynnie starts practicing her swing and fails to notice Marco behind her. Marco takes the full force of the bat to the face and is knocked unconscious. Marco comes to in his living room, his head bandaged up and his mother caring for him. Marco has a massive headache and is fatigued, probably has a concussion, but it seems he'll be okay. Mom leaves the room for a bit when the phone on the coffee table starts ringing. Marco picks it up. I heard breathing on the other end, and then a voice I didn't recognize said, "I hope you're okay, Marco." Who is this?" I stammered. I shut my eyes tight, trying to push away the pain of my throbbing head. "I hope you're okay," the voice repeated, a boy's voice. "I don't want anything bad to happen to you." "Who is this?" I demanded again. "It's me," the voice replied. "Keith." "Keith?" "Yes, Keith. I don't know you," I stammered. "You should," the boy replied softly. "You should know me, Marco. I live in your basement."
We have a title! Yes. We have a title, yes!
There's something really funny about having your antagonist just be a guy named Keith. Marco is very confused by this interaction, but not as confused as when he tells his mom about it, and she replies that there's no phone in this room. Also, Mom is wearing completely different clothes now. I mean, she could have changed, sure, but why? Something weird is happening. Marco's perception of reality seems to have been affected by the injury. The book goes into a bit of a slow burn for a while as Marco recovers. One of his friends comes over and they play pool in the basement, which isn't all that creepy, and there's clearly no Keith down here. There's a jump scare with a squirrel. Marco thinks he hears Keith's voice but can't find him. A few low-key spooky moments. Finally, Marco returns to school, and his teacher, Miss Mosley, asks him what his time was like in the hospital. But Marco has no memory of a hospital visit. He woke up at home, and his mother made no mention of them having ever been to the hospital. Maybe that blow to the head seriously messed with Marco's brain. This is the main source of tension for the book. Sure, there might be a guy named Keith hiding out in the basement, and we'll eventually run into a few monsters and some body horror stuff, but the anxiety over one's cognitive capabilities being compromised is seriously tense. Are my memories accurate? Am I hallucinating? Am I going crazy? There are plenty of people out there where this is a genuine fear, and even though this book was written for 8-year-olds, it still comes through and is pretty effective. Marco's trust in reality is starting to break down, and decisions are being influenced by trauma. When he sees Gwynnie rush up to him after school, his first instinct is that she's going to hurt him again, so he makes a run for it. Then a boy appears in Marco's room, claiming to be the ever-persistent Keith. Marco gets his mom, but when they reach his room, the family dog is sitting where Keith was. Mom gets worried and sets up an appointment with a Dr. Bailey. The doctor is a bit of a kooky character with a bow tie and green lab coat. Dr. Bailey checks out a few things and comes to a conclusion. Dr. Bailey scratched his bald head. "Do you know what I would like to do just to make sure everything is okay?" he asked. "What?" Mom and I said together. "I'd like to remove your brain and examine it under a microscope," Dr. Bailey said. "Huh?" I gasped. I nearly fell out of my chair. "It isn't a difficult operation," Dr. Bailey said, flashing me a calm, reassuring smile. "Once I crack the skull open, the brain slides out easily." Marco may not have a medical degree, but he knows this isn't right, and convinces his mom to wait a few days in hopes that he can talk her out of the procedure. Back at home, Marco tries to do some homework, but Keith's face appears on the computer screen. Gwynnie shows up to apologize about hitting Marco, and he tries to show her the face on the computer, except the computer isn't even on. Spooky. And then Gwynnie turns inside out. She opened her mouth. Wide, wider. Her mouth stretched open. Wider, wider. Until the rest of her face disappeared behind her open mouth. Her tongue plopped heavily under her chin, and then something pink began to pour out. Something pink and glistening wet rolled out from the gaping mouth. I saw yellow organs clinging to the glistening pink flesh. Something long and gray twisted out of her mouth, wrapped around itself. Dark, purple lungs slid over the drooping tongue. Holy crap! We haven't had a scene this graphic since, God, I don't know, the beginning, when the flesh melted off the ghosts in Welcome to Dead House. Marco passes out from fear, and then wakes up in the hospital. On this day, he got hit in the head. Was all of that just a dream? Except now things are very different. It was a different friend who hit him with the bat. Gwynnie is now his younger sister, and Dr. Bailey looks completely different. Now a more handsome TV-style doctor than the weird little mad scientist from before. Dr. Bailey then reaches into Marco's mouth and pulls his tongue out like it's a ribbon from a magician's sleeve. Marco wakes up again. Gwynnie is still his sister, but this time Dr. Bailey is a giant bearded man. Look, I can just make a list of all the inconsistencies, but the point is that the inconsistencies are happening more frequently and are getting weirder. Reality refuses to settle down for Marco. Keith shows up again, telling Marco that he's Keith's slave now for some reason, but Marco hits Keith with a paperweight, and Keith falls to the ground and turns into a weird gooey slime monster that tries to smother Marco. And then, Keith wakes up. It turns out it was Keith who was dreaming the whole thing, and he is actually a slime monster that secretly lives in Marco's basement. But I guess being in that position gives him a lot of anxiety. And that's it. The book ends. Okay, sure. So I really like this one. I think the core tension of Marco's altered perception was handled really well, especially in terms of pacing. First, it's small details that are changing. The location of phones, the clothes someone is wearing, and then it gradually builds up, rewriting reality over and over without going all out wacky. There's a lot of weird, almost David Lynchian details to add to the unease. There's a girl that's constantly hiccuping in the waiting room in the doctor's office. The paperweight Marco uses to attack Keith is this dramatic owl statue. Mom does laundry at 3 a.m. There's this oversized pool table in the basement, forcing everyone playing to squish up uncomfortably against the walls. It's uncomfortable in a way a shirt exactly one size too small is uncomfortable. The book seems like an attempt to take ideas that didn't really work in previous Goosebumps stories and try to do them better. The waking up in a new reality thing is basically a redux of Don't Go to Sleep, but more subtle and without the bad world building that dragged that book down. The hidden kid who forces himself into your life idea is right from My Best Friend is Invisible, but less obnoxious and scarier. The ending, with all of it being a dream of a goo monster, is a somewhat better take on the ending of The Blob That Ate Everyone. Those were all less than 10 books ago, and it's like Stein looked at his recent output and went, "Oh no, we can do better than that." And it is better than that. A solid entry into the win column. But it also feels like it's missing something. Like there's not quite enough calories here. Like it's a short story instead of a full book. First off, Marco is just a nothing protagonist. He has no interests, no convictions, no history or quirks or anything. Everybody else in this book has more character. Even a few of the minor friends at the softball game who don't play into the story at all are more fun and interesting to read about. Like there's these twins I didn't mention who are always arguing with each other, and they have nothing to do with anything, but they're so much more fun and lively than Marco ever is. Marco is just a crash test dummy, something to strap into the ride. Keith isn't much better as an antagonist. His actual threat to Marco is vague and underdeveloped. He isn't trying to take over Marco's life. He's just all, FYI, I live here now, you're my slave, okay, bye. And the "it was all a monster's dream" ending, while not terrible, isn't all that satisfying. I think what this book needed was a bit more of a cohesive conflict between Marco and Keith. So for my simple rewrite, most of the book stays the same. Marco gets hit in the head, reality starts shifting around him, Keith calls and says he lives in the basement. Except every time Marco goes down to the basement, Keith isn't there. The basement isn't even scary. It's pretty brightly lit, and it's just a normal basement. Why is this book even called I Live in Your Basement, you might be thinking? Marco then goes to the hospital and gets a brain scan by the ever-shifting Dr. Bailey. The doctor notes a lot of unusual activity in parts of the brain that deals with the subconscious function, which Dr. Bailey calls the brain's basement. Oh no! It turns out Keith isn't physically living in the house's basement, but is actually some sort of extra persona inside Marco's head, woken up by the injury. You could make Keith a dark reflection of Marco's desires and instincts, informing Marco's character through Keith. The reality warping stuff is a result of Keith stomping around Marco's brain, messing with his memories and perception, making him a much more proactive threat, and one much more difficult to deal with than just hitting him with a paperweight. You can still have the "it was all a dream" ending, but instead of a monster waking up, Keith the human wakes up and realizes that Marco is actually the invasive personality. Or maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely satisfied with that ending. But something like this would push this from long short story to a complete book. Again, this is a good one. It's unnerving, it's a little too real. I had a good time reading it. Oh wow, we're almost done, aren't we? One more book to go, and it's a monster blood. Hooray! I give I Live in Your Basement a Tonka truck out of 10.